Hello, welcome to the West Country, welcome to stage 6 of the Tour of Britain, and welcome to this question. Who's going to stop Edvald Boasson-Hagen then? There was a lot of muttering outside Stoke City's Britannia ground. No Bradley Wiggins chasing everything down would mean a realistic chance for a breakaway, to get away and to stay away, and for a while that's what happened. Rafa's Aussie Darren Lapthorne alongside Alan Marangoni and Cervelo Test Team's local lad Dan Fleeman. Near the top of the first climb of the day, they were joined by Nicolas Vogondi. So then there were 4, working out a lead which rose to over 5 minutes. But with Colombia moving to the front of the chase, the smart money was on the rabbit as the hare began to tire. Lapthorne was the first to realise that the game was up, and inside the final few kilometres, it was.
Boasson-Hagen has got away from the rest. He's got extra speed to spare. Here he comes up to the line. The Norwegian wins his 3rd stage here of the Tour. I say win because he's flying away from the rest. Look at this. Boasson-Hagen takes it on the line.
Knew I went early last year, just out from the corner, last roundabout. And yeah, I did it last year, so I tried the same this year.
So Boasson-Hagen now leads GC by 9 seconds from Royce. Chris Sutton's at 14 seconds, Martin Reimer at 17, Ross Downing moves back up to 5th. Well, Graham Jones, for a change, let's not bang on about Boasson-Hagen and Colombia because their deeds and his deeds kind of speak for themselves. What about the other Pro Tour teams? And there are plenty of them with a bit of unfinished business. Garmin have had a stage win, Rabobank have had a yellow jersey, Colombia are doing their thing, but what about the others?
Well, we saw couple of the other teams on the attack yesterday. Agritubel and AG2R were having a go yesterday. I mean, the race is still pretty tight. We also saw Katusha Pozzato trying to win the stage yesterday. Went very close to the 2nd place, just pipping Russell Downing. So I still think there's a lot to do yet, and we'll still see a chance with those teams to do something.
And there'll be no lacking in motivation for the domestic British teams either, but they have found the little step up in class, just a little bit hard to breach at the moment, haven't they?
Yeah, we were hoping for them to sort of show themselves a little bit more, but they're trying hard. And as we saw yesterday, Russell had a great ride, and but we've still got 3 good tough days to go, and I'm sure they'll be trying very hard.
Absolutely. As far as the Brits are concerned, Russ Downing so far has been the headline act, but he has a teammate, and it won't have escaped your notice that young Malcolm Elliott is having a half-decent race. He's at 14th place in GC, just 35 seconds down. And by the way, he's only 48 years old. Halfway between Peter Pan and Peter Stringfellow, there's no rider in world cycling who's seen as much or done as much as him. Milk race winner, Kellogg's Tour winner, national champion, Commonwealth gold medalist, 2 Tours de France and 2 stage wins in the Vuelta. It's a story that's been running for nearly 30 years. Malcolm, how are you finding the race? I mean, 14th place, 35 seconds down. That's pretty good, isn't it? You take that.
Yeah, I'd finish in that. I'd like that. Finish in that position there. I think that would be very respectable. We've got 2 very difficult days now coming ahead of us, and I'm going to be struggling to probably maintain that position. And now Colombia have the lead. As the pattern's been going each day, they're just allowing a break that they are comfortable with, and then just riding tempo and just rolling it together for the end for Boasson-Hagen to take another sprint. It's going to take a very strong team to disrupt that pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you find your recovery sort of period? Because at a certain age, it does get a bit harder, doesn't it? I mean, are there tricks there? What do you get up to? You know,
I always found recovery hard, even when I was 28, not 48.
20 years ago, when you were riding in the Tour de France and the Vuelta, and you were winning, the Tour of Britain. If someone had fast forwarded and said, look, in 20 years' time, you're still going to be competing at this kind of level and holding your own, would you have believed
I'd have
it?
laughed in the face. No, of course not. No, there was no one doing that. Back then, it was absolutely unheard of. I think when I was here last year at the Tour of Britain, after I'd done this race, I seem to recall saying I wouldn't do another
Whether it's the Steve Redgrave thing, isn't it? If you catch me on a bike again, shoot me or whatever. Yeah, and here you are again.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying that again now.
Are you?
Yeah.
Never again. Last Tour of Britain.
I would say so, unless there's an amazing sort of change of how I feel during next year. But yeah, I'm saying that now.
He's saying that now.
You kind of have to draw a line somewhere, don't you?
Malcolm Elliott is saying that now. That, ladies and gentlemen, was a lie. You've just heard a lie. We'll see this man back here next year for sure. Malcolm, it's been brilliant. Well done.
No,
cheers, fella.
Cheers.
Malcolm Elliott, what an extraordinary story it is. Has he been genetically modified, Graham? Is that what his secret is? I mean, how does he do it?
I don't know. Benjamin Button comes to mind a little bit. It astounds me every time I see him, really. It is an incredible story, 48 years of old. I mean, we've seen people sort of reach 40 and still playing football, but to be competed at this level in cycling, it is incredible.
He's the Stanley Matthews of cycling, isn't he, to use that analogy? I mean, you rode with him and against him, and, you know, how's he changed? How's he developed as a rider?
How God developed, I don't know really. He still looks like he could be, you know, still in his 30s. I just think he's just got so serious. I mean, Malcolm was a brilliant rider, but I always said he never really got the best out of himself. I mean, he won points in the Vuelta, but I think there was so much more there. But it's just great to see, and it's a fantastic story.
It's been particularly impressive how well he's been going uphill. There's a bit more climbing to be done on today's stage. Let's have a look at the route map of Stage 6. Stage 6 starts in Somerset and ends up in Devon as the Tour reaches the bottom left-hand corner of the country. It's 183k, incidentally, which makes it the longest stage on the Tour. Frome is the starting point, but the race is all about Winsford Hill. The Cat 1 climb is 60 kilometres from the end. That would be the ideal place to go off the front and hit for home. This route never strays far from the coast, and if the bunch can stay clear of wild horses and wild kiteboarders, then they only have the wild winds of Exmoor to contend with. Exposed and raw, ploughing the fields and scattering the riders. Well, Exmoor had a huge bearing on the outcome of the 2008 edition of the Tour of Britain. Let's see whether today shakes things up a little too. High time to join our commentary team, Anthony McCrossan and first of all, Hugh Porter.
Well, this is the rollout for the stage from Frome to Bideford. Stage 6, it's the longest of all the legs here in the Tour of Britain, 114 miles. And the classification leaders on the front row, there's the yellow jersey of Boasson Hagen, and it's going to take a mighty task to take that jersey off his shoulders. The Norwegian in fine form, the king of the mountains, is Thomas de Gent, wearing that polka dot jersey. The Belgian that's been the revelation of the race. And just behind Boasson Hagen, we see the colours of Rabobank. The other classification leaders at the moment, the prostate cancer charity blue jersey is on the shoulders of Chris Sutton, the flying Australian, who's riding for Garmin Slipstream. And at the intermediate sprint competition is white and blue, and there it is, and that's being worn by Kai Roos, the former yellow jersey. Well, spirits are good here in the field. Riders having a little joke, but of course once the flag drops, it'll be all systems go. There's Chris Sutton on the right in that prostate cancer charity blue jersey, and it's normally green actually in the Tour de France, isn't it, Anthony?
It is. You may remember if you watched the Tour de France that Mark Cavendish was trying to take the green jersey, but this jersey is in the colours of the charity as they make their way up a 10% gradient straight out of the start.
And let's just underline the competition for the points jersey. If you finish in the top 15 every day, you score points. It's 15 for first and 1 for 15th. And at the end of the 8 stages, the rider with the most points will, of course, have won that category. Well, there's Malcolm Elliott, the oldest man in the race. 48 now, I think he is, and my goodness me, he's still pedalling very quickly.
Well, he's a great team captain to have in that squad, the likes of Russell Downing and the other riders getting a great level of expertise from him. Great number of schools on the route, 62 schools before we get to Bideford for the stage finish.
All the schools are empty, they're all out on the side of the road. Well, now look at this is an early attack, and it is the Belgian trying to go away, that's Serge Pauwels. And Pauwels is a very talented bike rider, so he's the first to have ignited the blue touch paper today.
Well, look at this. He's got a great style, a member of the Cervelo test team. This is the first year that Serge Pauwels has been a full-time professional bike rider. He was a part-time professional previously, but he was studying a degree. This time he's really focused on being a great bike rider and looking really classy today.
I remember when he was riding as an amateur because he had a high place finish in the Tour de l'Avenir, 4th overall. Well, more riders have got ideas of trying to get clear on this hilly stage in the early stages, and I can tell you that the pace is very, very high because they've got a favourable tailwind and the skies are blue and there isn't even a fluffy cloud to be seen. Warm temperatures, and this should lend itself to an absolute stormer of a race. Barlow World at the back. It looks a bit like Steve Cummings to me.
It does look like Steve Cummings. There are riders all over the place here, but a trio of riders trying to get across. Looks to me like one of the ISD Nieri riders and a large frame rider as well. Could be Stannard coming across.
And also the red colours of one of the Barlow World team just off the front as well. Now then, if these could link up, in fact they have, look at this, and there is confirmation of the group, and that is a talented group. Pauwels has now got company. Thomas de Ghent, inevitably he's there, the king of the mountains. Geraint Thomas from Cardiff, Ian Stannard and Ben Swift. Good group. Welcome back, and these 5 riders are working very well together. They're heading on now towards the first sprint of the day at Bridgewater, and when they get there they will have covered 34 miles.
Geraint Thomas on the front in red, powering along the gap now to the peloton. 2 minutes and 25 seconds, so it's growing.
And that means on the road, Geraint Thomas is the overall race leader. He started the day in 16th position, trailing by 35 seconds. And at the sprint, there are time bonuses as well. 3 seconds for first, 2 for second, 1 for third. Now, straight away, the Columbia team, I was going to say on the back foot, but they are so strong. They've just moved to the front. And I feel they're going to allow this group to go so far, and then they'll probably peg it. But the good news about this here, Anthony, is we've got English presence here, and maybe for the first time in the stage or in the race, we may be with a chance of getting a British stage victory.
Well, do you know, before the start I was wondering about Ian Stannard, because of course last year he was on the podium of the Tour of Britain at the finish, and we have not really heard from him in the entire race, so it's great to see him in there. Thinking back to last year, he was in a day-long breakaway early in the race.
He is a very, very strong rider, is Ian Stannard. He's only young, 22 years of age, comes from Milton Keynes. Look at this is the sprint for the first points and time bonuses on the line at Bridgewater, and look at that, the red jersey sweeps over the line first, Geraint Thomas, and he was just ahead of the king of the mountains, Thomas de Ghent. Pauwels coming in third and Stannard finishing 4. So that's another useful 3 seconds then going to Geraint Thomas.
Geraint Thomas looking strong today. Of course, we think back to his puncture when he was in the moves, looking like he was going to go to try and take the yellow jersey. Very, very disappointed when he punctured in that move. But today looking strong, and he did say this morning that he thought that his form was very good. He was feeling lean from a good road season, and he thought he could get in the move today.
Well, the race, having left Bridgewater, is now heading on towards the Quantock Hills and the first climb of the stage, and that's at Cothelstone Hill. It's categorised as a second cat climb, so it means first man over the top gets 6 points. But the yellow jersey, there he is, look, Boasson Hagen. I must admit, when you see him on the podium, his shy face actually belies his strength and courage. This is the bunch coming over the line, led inevitably by the Columbia team, and just look at the speed.
It's incredibly quick. It's 40 mile an hour on the flat because they've got a tailwind as they start to hit the climbs. The Cothelstone Hill climb is 2 miles in length. 124 kilometres to go now as Thomas sets the pace. Ben Swift, how many times has he been sitting on the wheel of Geraint Thomas as they go up these little rises?
Do you know, this actually does me a pair of good to see Geraint Thomas, because he's had a dreadful season. He's had injuries and illnesses to put up with, and really he's only just starting to get going. And I mean, he's such a talented bike rider. He was a former junior world champion on the track. He actually won the junior version of the Paris-Roubaix before he then moved into the paid ranks. And I think we've not really seen the best of this fella on the road, and he is a gold medal winner from Beijing from the team pursuit.
Well, he's probably doing something similar to Brad Wiggins, because when they ride the track, they have a little bit more muscle bulk, a little bit more weight that they carry, even although they're super fit and great bike riders. But he's really slimmed down a lot now, Geraint Thomas. You look at him, he's lean. That helps him to get over the climbs, which, of course, in a road rider, you really need. CSF Navigari on the fronting green of the peloton.
But Thomas quite happy to tap the rhythm out here on the front of the group. Powles is sitting in the second position, and he does look relaxed and fully confident here, Geraint Thomas, the man with so much talent. But the field all stretching out in the long, thin line. Just look at the glorious, glorious countryside here. Of course, it's bathed in this lovely warm sunshine today.
Well, we've got so many fans by the side of the road. You wait till we get to the top of the climbs. They're coming out in their thousands to watch this race. They either come out, stand by the side of the road. I've even seen people sitting in their deck chairs over the last couple of days. There's Geraint Thomas tapping out the rhythm on the front.
Let's just refresh our memories about the standings as they set off at the top of the stage. Boasson Hagen has got a 9-second advantage ahead of the Dutchman Kai Roos, and Chris Sutton, the Australian, in third place at 14 seconds. So really there's everything to play for, and let's hope that this group keeps their foot on the pedal. There is the man of the match, Thomas de Gent. Well, he's just uncontrollable.
Do you remember yesterday he said that he wasn't going to go on the attack anymore because he felt, as we see Columbia and CSF Navigari having a bit of a conversation as they go up the climb. Maxime Montfort on the right-hand side. He said yesterday he wasn't going to go on the attack anymore. He wanted to concentrate on making sure he had a jersey when he got to the finish. But anyway, today's a different day.
I think he's already made a fist of that, hasn't he? He's underlined the jersey he wants, the King of the Mountains, and I tell you what, it's going to take a mighty effort to stop him winning it. I think that CSF Navigari rider was that long rangy figure of Alan Marangoni that figured very strongly yesterday. And I don't know what the words were that were being exchanged, but Marangoni looked as though he was starting to move up as well. But this group at the front are making a real good job of the ascent here.
Marangoni said this morning again that he wanted to get in the moves. He enjoyed being in the breakaway all day yesterday, but he hasn't made it. Maybe the CSF Navigari feel they can take them across, close the gap, and springboard him to an attack.
Look at Geraint Thomas up there, and also Thomas de Gent. Look on the outside. He's got more points. Thank you very much, Thomas de Gent, who started off as the King of the Mountains with an emphatic lead, has reinforced it and picked himself up 6 points there to take that gap even bigger over his nearest challenge. He really is on fire in this race, Thomas de Gent.
Well, they're going to go over the top of this climb now, and they're going to have to be very careful on the descent. There are bits of 17%. Is very, very steep on the descent down to the bottom before we start climbing again.
And this race, of course, that crisscrosses Somerset and Devon. All the roads are heavy, apart from the official climbs. Even in between, you've got to really work hard. This is real good racing country. Well, still 1 point to go, and that went to CSF Navigari.
It was CSF Navigari across the top first. 1 minute and 16 seconds. Now the advantage for the breakaway, and there's the name.
And there it is, confirmed. It's Filippo Savini that got the 1 point, but I think we must look at the story there, and it's Thomas de Gent that's the man on fire today, and he's got himself another 6 points. He wants this jersey, and he's not going to let it go. Don't go away, a lot more to come. Well, welcome back, and the race is in full flight now, and the leading group are heading on towards Sprint 2 at Wivelscombe. It's a quaint little town situated at the foot of the Brendan Hills, the gateway to Exmoor. And just to help you with the colours, in red on the front it's Geraint Thomas, in the Dayglow colours there it's Ian Stannard. Ben Swift's in the Katusha colours of white third wheel. Behind him is Powles, also in white. He rides on the Cervelo team, and the other member of the group in the polka dot jersey was Thomas de Gent.
Well, the team of Columbia HTC still on the front as we see Ian Stannard's really started to up the pressure. 1 kilometre to go now to the sprint. Let's see who takes this one.
Well, The first sprint was Geraint Thomas picking up a useful 3-second bonus. There he is, tucked at the back at the moment, but he seems to be a man on a mission today. Got the good legs on and obviously revelling in this form of countryside.
Still a whistling tailwind as they make their way towards the line. We look here at the peloton. There's a couple of riders at the back suffering a little bit. We're hearing at the moment the Agritubel rider, Freddie Bichot, suffering right at the back of the peloton and wondering if he's going to struggle through this entire stage.
Well, of course, it's the kind of stage that you want to stay in contact with the main field, because if you lose contact with them early, then you've got a long, hard ride on your own, and you've got to try and beat the time limit.
Well, as the gap now is approaching 2 minutes and Geraint Thomas has taken the first sprint, if he can take this one, then he's going to just accumulate a few more seconds. Very important for the yellow jersey. Look at the long string of riders as they head towards the sprint.
And it is Thomas again, the Belgian king of the mountains, trying to lead this one out. But look at Geraint Thomas using his track speed to good effect there. Thomas then takes the 5 points and the 3-second bonus, and it was De Gent second who got the 2. And that's Powell's actually in the white coming over the line third, and that actually is exactly the same positions as they finished in sprint 1. Ben Swift finishing 4th, just getting the 1 point.
So Thomas De Gent now onto the front has got to let everyone come back together here and make sure that they carry on with their workmanlike breakaway. Just looks down, checks the gears, because there will be another climb on the horizon very soon indeed.
And the next climb that they'll be tackling is the Devil's Elbow, and that comes after 55 miles. It's almost actually off the back of that sprint that they've just gone through. So the cardio effort that they put in for the sprint, well, it doesn't give them a lot of time to recover before they're then forced onto the back foot of the climb.
Well, there go the peloton over the sprint line. 96 kilometres to go, the gap down to 1:27.
So the work being done on the head of the peloton by the Columbia squad is not allowing these 5 much of an advantage. They're working well, but they need to try and crack that and get up to something like 3 minutes. Swift it was on the front there.
Well, it won't be long now till we go through the feed for these riders. And thinking back to yesterday, I talked to Dan Fleeman before the start today, just to get a bit of an insight as to how much nutrition these guys need out on the road. And he took on yesterday 8 bottles of fluid, 3 gels and 2.5 energy bars. Really got to keep your nutrition up all the way through a stage.
Vitally important. Let me just tell you that Thomas De Gent started today's stage with 40 points in the King of the Mountains. He had an 18-point advantage over Federico Canuti, the Italian. Now today he's already picked up 6 at the top of Cothelstone Hill, and if he can gain more points here on this next ascent of the Devil's Elbow, he's moving himself into an unassailable position in this competition.
Well, the Devil's Elbow is a bit of a deceptive climb, I think. It's pretty steep. It doesn't look quite as steep on the race profile, but I think it might cause a few riders some problems.
The injection of pace at the front then by De Gent, just causing the leading group to fracture fractionally there. But the Katusha rider, Ben Swift, in the middle from Rotherham, brings them all back together, and we can see the crowd gathering there at the summit of the climb. Lots and lots of people have come out to support the tour today, particularly at the top of these severe tests. And it is going to be, well, I was going to say it is De Gent over the line first. Oh, it was very close, wasn't it? It looked like De Gent just lunging for the line. Powell's, his fellow countryman, just coming alongside. Yes, that's how they finished. So De Gent got the 4, Powell's the 3, Thomas the 2, and Ben Swift picking up the 1. So he's having a very good day again, this Belgian.
He is. Thomas De Gent talks into his race radio, in constant contact with his team director, updating him on where he finished in the King of the Mountains points, and they'll just knock that one down and make sure that they know exactly how he's doing in his lead. Still Columbia on the front of the peloton.
All the points have been looked after on this climb because it's a third cat, and of course there's only 4 positions available with scoring points. So this is the descent. Now vigilance is the order of the day on these descents. They'll be touching speeds getting up to 45 and 50 miles per hour, so they'll be just feathering the brakes slightly, and it's finding the good line.
Well, you've got to be very careful on this descent because you go rushing down here. There's a 10% gradient, and then there's a very, very tight 180-degree bend at the bottom as well. So you've got to get the brakes on to get round it. Here we are on the line.
There we are then, just cresting the summit, 94 kilometres to go. and it's 140. It's just hovering, isn't it? 125, 140.
Well, they look like they're just holding them now as another bottle is thrown away. It's a hot day out there for these riders, even with a tailwind, but the sun is beating down on the backs, so they've got to keep the fluid levels up.
The first time actually that Boasson Hagen raced in our country was when he filled an invitation for a Norwegian junior team in a stage race that the Solihull Club put on in Birmingham. But now, of course, 22 years of age, he's now beginning to carve out a very impressive career.
Well, something else I found out about him this morning is that Lars Nordag of the Joker Bianchi team, who of course is going to be on the Sky team next year, is the rider that he trains with all the time, so he knows just how quick he is. I bet he goes through some pain on his training rides.
Absolutely. Just look at these lovely, lovely small towns and villages that the race is weaving its way through, and the crowds, of course, packed all along the twists and turns to see the riders go by. Now, this is the hardest climb of the day. It's a first category affair. It's Winsford Hill. Now, I remember this from before. It goes up in 3 stages, actually.
It does. It's 2.6 miles. It's got some pretty steep gradients on it, but also Graham Jones, the route designer, I think he's been a little bit crafty here, because the King of the Mountains point is on the, you'll see it go through the summit, but then you go up 2 more stages, so the climb isn't even over.
So it's a climb with 1 or 2 false flats along the way. Graham Jones, perfect man for the job of designing the course. He finished 20th himself in the Tour de France during his pro career. Well, Thomas, look at this. He really is eager to get on with it. He's finding a good rhythm. You actually find this a lot. Pursuit riders are also very good climbers. You saw that with Bradley Wiggins in the recent Tour de France. He gets the good cadence, and then he can keep the gear turning very, very smoothly, and he can always hold a high place.
It just shows how well he is climbing, because Serge Powles of the Cervelo Test team, there in the white and black, is a great climber. We think to the Giro d'Italia earlier in the year. He was in a winning position in a stage in the mountains of the Giro d'Italia, and because of his job as a rider looking after Carlos Sastre, he was asked to wait on the mountain, but he's a great climber. So Geraint Thomas riding very well today. Look at this, it's a great climb. The trees over it are just shielding the riders from the sun, and then it will come out into the sunlight at the top.
So there it is, 63 kilometres to go. That's just a tad over 37 miles, and once again that lead has gone out fractionally. It's only 7 seconds shy of the 2-minute mark. So they are riding well, this quintet at the head of the field. Colombia obviously doing the very good teamwork, but these 5 are working very, very well economically, sharing the workload.
Do you know, it's good to see Ben Swift in here, because he's had tired legs over the last few days, but he's in the move. He had a good performance earlier on, of course, in the Tour of Britain, but it now looks like he's recovering. I'm looking at this breakaway actually, Hugh. We know that Geraint Thomas has signed for Team Sky for next year, but there's another 2 British riders in there, and there was a rumour about Serge Powles about that squad a few months ago. So I wonder if some of these will end up in the same squad next year.
They could well be in the same team. And just to underline that remark you made about Ben Swift, he's had a very heavy season for a young man. But there we are, the line is in sight, the summit of this first category climb here at Winsford Hill. And Thomas de Gent, inevitably, the King of the Mountains, comes over the line first to pick up a very healthy 10 points there ahead of Serge Powles. And we'll tidy the rest of the places up, but I can tell you that 10 points is now going to lift Thomas de Gent's tally to 60, and that means that he cannot lose the King of the Mountains competition. There are 3 more climbs to come tomorrow on the penultimate stage, but that is not enough for any rider to challenge him. So he has won the King of the Mountains competition outright, and he wanted to do that. He said to us he wanted to win a classification.
Well, great performance from Thomas de Gent, and as you may have noticed, in front of the riders they went down a little descent, but the climb will start to go up again, and we're on exposed countryside. Really dramatic, great scenery as we see the peloton all bunched together now.
Kim Kirchen's one of the men in that leading string of the Columbia riders. Such a talented man that's figured well in the Tour de France, and Kirchen is doing a very good job as well for Boasson-Hagen, the yellow jersey. I mean, when you've got talent like this in your team to pull you along, it's absolutely wonderful. Here come the field over the line, led by Columbia, and it was Kim Kirchen actually that was first over the line as they now rattle across the cattle grid. And the rest of the places for you, I can confirm. Kirchen coming over, and behind him it was Montfort and Dox.
The gap was 1 minute and 51 seconds at the top.
Look at that for a view, absolutely fantastic.
Welcome back to the business end of stage 6 of the Tour, and to huge crowds in Barnstable, perhaps the biggest of the Tour so far. Our 5 leaders in Barnstable were still away, and those crowds saw Geraint Thomas take out his 3rd intermediate sprint win of the day. Meanwhile, in the chasing bunch under a minute away, Laurens ten Dam and Arno van Grun were among several riders who fell foul of a central reservation, lost a little time but managed to get back on. The chasing bunch then suffered its first casualty of the day as further up the road Ben Swift found the going too hard and he dropped away, never to regain his place in the break. Let's pick up the action now for the closing few kilometres with Anthony and Hugh.
Well, the peloton are still chasing very hard indeed. 8 kilometres to go, and the lead only 35 seconds, so this is a bit of a cliffhanger.
So a slender advantage for the 4 riders who are left. Let's just remind ourselves, Stannard, the British rider, Geraint Thomas, Serge Pauwels and Thomas de Gendt. 35 seconds. It's a big ask now to hold on, but they really are drilling it to try.
And Thomas de Gendt on the front here. Now, I'm just wondering, could de Gendt win a stage to add to all the other impressive points he's grabbed in the King of the Mountains competition and also the intermediate sprints? That certainly would be a story. De Gendt just coming back now down on the inside of the leading group, having done his piece at the front.
Well, you'll notice there the peloton is not all the riders are in there. We've got a group that have dropped off the back under the pressure that's been set all day today and the tough climbs. There's Stannard, he's struggling to stay on the wheel here.
And it is the usual pattern as well. The Team Columbia lined out on the front, trying to pull them back. Now then, Stannard and Geraint Thomas know each other well, because on their apprenticeship, or in their apprenticeship I should say, up to this stage of racing, they were both track riders, and Stannard has been a European Team Pursuit medalist on a couple of occasions. Thomas, of course, a world champion for the Team Pursuit, and 2 Belgians. So we've got a Welshman, an Englishman and 2 Belgians in this group.
Well, this is going to be a very exciting finish as we race into Bideford. They've put on a great day of festivities and they're going to have a party at the end of it as well. So Pauwels giving it some on the front now.
Trying to inject some extra pace here, this 25-year-old Belgian. He just missed out on a victory in a stage in the Giro, and he was second on stage 15 this year, Pauwels. And he releases the head of the group to de Gendt, and I tell you what, they're moving well. There's no hint of fatigue amongst these 4.
De Gendt just swings across, lets Stannard race through. This is going to be an exciting finish and an explosive one, I think, Hugh. There's the Garmin team on the front of the peloton now.
They're obviously looking after the interests of Chris Sutton, the flying Australian, a man who has wings on his wheels when it comes to the closing sprint, so they're trying to set it up for a sprint for Sutton. Remember, he won the dash to the line on the opening leg up in York, and it was similar conditions to today in York with warm sunshine.
Well, the pulse rates are rising and the adrenaline's pumping now in this breakaway. Do you know what, Hugh? I got asked today on Twitter if we could have your pulse rate on the screen for the finish.
Well, he doesn't go much above 100. Now then, there's the gap, you see, so the bunch can now see the leading group twisting narrow turns would be better. It would favour the group ahead because then the bunch wouldn't be able to see them. Out of sight, out of mind. 32 seconds.
The man on the back there in the blue was Nicholas Vigondi. We're inside 5 kilometres now to go. Vigondi in the break yesterday just struggling a little bit as we rush into the finish. Stannard on the front, giving it a little bit more gas now.
So 5 kilometres, that's 3 miles. That's the old professional pursuit distance remaining. And, well, it's still touch and go, isn't it? They could hang on.
Well, they certainly could hang on, and if they can do that, they will be the first group for a number of days to do so, because of course Boasson-Hagen's won a hat-trick of victories. Inside 5 kilometres now to go for the peloton.
And the field beginning to stretch out now. When they do drop down to the quay, the finish in Bideford, they're going to go across the impressive stone bridge that was built back in 1535. It spans the Torridge River, but they won't have any time to absorb the magnificent scenery. They're concentrating fully on the job in hand, and it's De Gent again, giving it maximum here on the front.
Serge Powell swings onto the back of the group there. He looks very, very comfortable. I wonder if he's going to launch himself here for the finish. As I just noticed, we've every day we've seen the orange-clad jerseys of Euskaltel-Euskadi moving up, and they are trying to position their sprinter now.
And that, of course, is Coldo Fernandez. But really, you've got to take your hat off, haven't you, to this group, because they are trying to reshape the race and they're not surrendering the lead. This is a hugely impressive effort by the quartet.
Over that little rise there, that's just going to hurt the legs even more. Geraint Thomas moves over to go the shortest way round. Look at that, we're heading towards the finish now.
Well, what a glorious shot that is. The tide's out at the moment, but that will be full later this evening.
Well, let's see whether this group is staying away. The peloton are looking for them now. The cavalry are starting to charge. Have they left this too late? As De Gent gives it a little bit more throttle again on the front. They are absolutely flat out.
The race now is in a serious mood. Coming up to the next sign here, 3 kilometres to go. We're getting ever nearer, and it's Garmin Slipstream that was on the front. They move over now to allow the pace setting to be taken over then by Columbia. That looked like Pozzato, actually second wheel back, the Italian as well.
Yep, Pozzato is moving up. Of course, yesterday he was second. He was pretty disappointed and not winning the stage as Serge Powell kicks the pedals over, trying now to stay away.
Looks relaxed, doesn't he? Just perched there on the saddle, slightly forward. It's always a telltale sign when the effort is being totally committed. And Stannard comes through. He is a strong boy, is Ian Stannard.
You can see the stress in Ian Stannard's legs there as he just tries to lift the knees, keep the pedalling style. 2.5 kilometres to go now.
And they can see them. They're just dangling in front now, the 4. Are they going to get them? This is going to be so close. There's a long descent that drops them down to that bridge I mentioned before they swing right. Now, if they could just get to the summit of that with the advantage, then they could stop ahead and keep the peloton at bay.
Well, if anyone's got any energy left in that breakaway, then they'll just take a flyer and try and stay away to the finish. But look at that, they don't want to look round now. The peloton are boring down on them.
And that gap is coming down. They're nibbling away at the advantage. It is coming down with every pedal rev, and I think the 4 know that they are not going to hold off the bunch. Anxious looks back now. Geraint Thomas looked back. He thought, are they here yet? But he still will not give up. Look at this. Out of the saddle, trying to inject a little bit more pace. And one of the riders has lost contact there.
They're inside the last 2 kilometres. Geraint Thomas ups the pace yet again. He's desperately trying to hold on. He so much wants a win for Great Britain and for the Barlow World team.
First rider to slip back was Ian Stannard. So Stannard has slipped back, but the other 3 are still going on. And who is it on the front? It's got to be, hasn't it? It's Thomas De Gent. He just will not give in. It's De Gent. He's still opening up the throttle.
Well, any moment now you'll see that blue bridge across the road that shows 1 kilometre to go as the peloton now catch them. Geraint Thomas says, well done De Gent, and they go back into the peloton.
So finally then, the junction is made. It's status quo. Apart from that little field that lost contact on the climb, they're back together. But here's an attack. Here is an attack developing on the outside. 1 kilometre to go.
1 kilometre to go to the finish, and they up the pace. It's the Rabobank team trying to get rid of Columbia from the front.
Kai Roos, of course, is the man that's second in the race. He won the stage down to Newcastle Gateshead, and they are trying to look after his interest. But I tell you what, I think the Columbia team are too clever. They won't allow anybody to go away.
Well, they want now to get their sprinters onto the wheel of Edvald Boasson-Hagen. There's a move on the right-hand side of the peloton here. They're trying to wash him away. You'll notice there's a split in the peloton as well.
He definitely has fractured, and this leading cluster of riders taking the right-hander onto the bridge will be the ones that contest the final sprint. And it's beginning to stretch out a little bit as they're coming up to the right-hander.
Well, there's a few riders there who didn't quite manage to get themselves around the corner in the position they wanted to. They're going to set themselves up now for the finish.
And it was Columbia on the front again, and it looked a little bit like the profile of Boasson-Hagen again. He's in the unequivocal form of his life. Look at this, Boasson-Hagen being chased down by the German champion Reimer, and that's Russell Downing in third spot. Boasson-Hagen hits the line to take his fourth consecutive stage victory. There is just no holding this man. He is unbelievable.
That is a fantastic victory for Boasson-Hagen. 7 wins in the Tour of Britain in 2 years. That's exceptional.
So Boasson-Hagen in imperious form nails down yet another stage. And look at this fella, he's happy. He's won the King of the Mountains, he can't be beaten. So coming up to the line, another 10-second bonus. Boasson-Hagen takes it. What a performance.
So if that all rings a bell, it's because it's happened already in Gretna, Blackpool and Stoke. In fact, there's barely a town down the western side of the island which hasn't already been Boasson-Hagened.
It was really close, and I was working the whole way to control. It was amazing working. Thanks. Amazing work. Oh.
The same names in the frame with a couple of interesting additions. Martin Reimer's strong tour continues with a very decent second place. Russ Downing once again in third. And the highest finish yet from the virtually invisible Euskaltel Euskadi team. Koldo Fernandez coming in fourth. But Boasson-Hagen was left to reacquaint himself with the podium girls. After all, it had been a full 24 hours. Although a minute later, he was at it again, back to pull on the prostate cancer charity points jersey. Another win cementing his lead for consistent placings. Then it was time for Thomas de Gent, who has trodden in a groove of exactly his shoe size on the podium. Firstly for the sprints, which he nearly sewed up today, and then back again seconds later for the mountains jersey, which he has sewn up. So perhaps he can start to take it easy now. Thomas, congratulations, you've won it. The King of the Mountains competition is yours. You've still got a little bit of work to do in the sprints, but I guess you'll be very confident now.
Yeah, if tomorrow 3 guys are in front and nobody has points, then normally I win it. So I just have to look out for one rider, and that's Martin Reimer. And if he doesn't take enough points, then I win it too.
The Bikeability yellow jersey then appears fairly welded onto the solid frame of the flame-haired Norwegian, calm, unruffled, but even he's a little taken back by his success.
I didn't expect to win 4 stages, but I had really good help from the team on every stage, so without them I couldn't do so good. So it's amazing work they do. So then it's nice to win for the team, and they work so hard.
But Boasson-Hagen's heroics aside, the story of the race was the great British breakaway. 3 of the best working together and so nearly springing a surprise.
Been in a few moves that haven't really come off, but today worked well, and it's quite surprised we lasted so long, to be honest. Like, we knew that Columbia would just ride hard and just keep us at bay, really, but I never really thought we could get to finish until about 4k to go.
With me, G and Swifty there, you know, we've all lived together for the last 4 years, so yeah, we're all thinking the same thing, and we all, like, on the descents and that, you know, trust each other and everything, so took maximum advantage of it. But yeah, shame to get so close, but so far, really.
Well, I had a word with Swifty, you know, the last couple of days. We were like, oh, we're gonna light it up, and yeah, we spoke to Stannard as well, so we were all kind of like looking at each other. We knew what we wanted to do, and once we got together, we all committed fully, and yeah, we worked really well.
Well, Geraint Thomas's time bonuses on the route move him up 10 places to 6th. Martin Reimer and Chris Sutton swap places. Reimer's 6-second time bonus pushes him onto a podium place, but still 21 seconds off the lead. Serge Pavels also gets up into the top 10, and behind him there are another 42 riders, still all within a minute, meaning the likelihood of Columbia letting a break go is still quite remote. Well, we've been waiting a while for the Brits to really show themselves, but Mick Bennett, race organiser, I mean, they truly had a go today, didn't they? And for a while it looked like they might get away.
I mean, it was amazing, really. We had the predictions that Graham may have made at the start, but certainly...
You want to ignore them.
Yeah, yeah, that certainly we made at the finish was that this would not be together at the finish. I mean, to be caught with inside 3 or 4K to go after terrain like this was amazing. But those crowds in Barnstable, absolutely unbelievable. And I've had several journalists, which is unusual for them to give me a positive story at the finish, but several journalists have all said they are the biggest crowds they've ever seen on the Tour of Britain. And that's what happens, I think, when you get joint collaboration with 2 counties, Devon and Somerset, combined today. We started in Somerset and finished here in Bideford. And if you join marketing and PR forces together there, the results are record crowds. And that's what we want. 68 schools had the day off. We had 5,000 school children here at the finish from about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. They absolutely loved it.
And I think the sunshine probably helped as well. But in Edvald Boasson Hagen, I mean, he emerged on last year's tour. We've got a really genuinely world-class rider, and he's kind of found his home on the Tour of Britain, hasn't he? And he's attracting worldwide attention, which is bringing the attention to the race as well.
Yeah, it is, and what a nice guy he is. You know, he's 22. Is he 22, 23?
22 is hard to interview by my Mick. Very hard to interview.
He's such a quiet, genteel sort of guy. Yeah, they don't go down too well, do they? You want aggressive types. But no, he's a lovely chap, and he's almost sort of a journalist's dream, really, to be so young with such a future in front of him. And I certainly hope he keeps continuing to come back here, obviously with a new team next year.
Absolutely. Well, the Tour of Britain is no longer young. It's getting really quite old in this edition. Just 2 stages remain for us. And tomorrow we ride from Hatherley to Yeovil for the penultimate stage. Let's do it all again then.